little ones, the Sleep Manual podcast.
Welcome to another episode of the Sleep Manual, the podcast dedicated to helping parents with their little ones sleep. Hosted by sleep experts myself and Nikki.
Hi.
Our podcast aims to guide parents through the journey of establishing healthy sleep habits for their babies, ensuring restful nights for both infants and parents alike.
So in this episode, we're going to have a look at how you can create a nice sleep zone for your little one that is relaxing and calming and not stimulating. We're going to look at the power of the dark. Sounds like a Star Wars thing, power of the dark side. We're going to look at the ideal nursery temperature. We are definitely going to be looking at how you can use white noise in your child's sleep space, and of course how you can look at safe sleep for your little one. So we're going to be covering quite a lot of areas in their sleep environment, and all of these things are, like Amanda said, very crucial to helping your little one to settle to sleep easier, but also to stay asleep a lot better. And we actually like to refer to the sleep environment as something that's an easy fix or a quick win. There are a lot of things with factors with baby sleep which you're going to have to work at a fair bit, and there's potentially times where you're going to have to be changing their routine, you're going to have to be implementing different methods, and that stuff can all take a bit of time to lock in. Any changes to their sleep environment you can literally do today and positive results almost straight away. So if you're thinking that there's some stuff that's not quite right as we go through this episode, by tomorrow your little one could be sleeping a lot better.
For sure. So I think first of all is making sure that we're setting the stage for a calming atmosphere inside their cot or bassinet or wherever they are sleeping, making sure that there is no toys or mobiles or musical toys, or I've even seen people have those, those play things with like buttons and bells and things.
That they push
like
with a sensory board type thing.
Yeah, sensory board. All of those things do not need to be inside their sleeping space. Think about your own sleeping space. There will be a bed and nothing else, making sure that it's conducive of good sleep.
It needs to be distraction free, and there's a couple reasons for that. One is because as your baby gets older, anything that is interesting to them, they're going to focus on that, and they're going to want to touch that or look at that or listen to that and not sleep. And then of course the other reason is they need to be associating their room and their sleeping space with their cot or their bassinet with sleep, not with playing.
Yeah.
So sleep associations are a really very strong and important part of getting your little one to sleep well. So you want them to go into their room and associate the room with sleep, not, oh, here I am in the place that I don't sleep and I play.
Yeah.
Because nobody wants that. So if you've already got your little one's nursery set up and you've got a musical mobile, this is a big one because they're sold as products to hang over your little one's bed. You turn on as they're going to sleep, things go around, it's noisy, it's pretty, it's very aesthetic, but I promise you that it is not helping your little one sleep.
If you're desperate to have it inside their room, then one thing that I did with my kids is hung the mobile over where I changed them.
Yes,
to
great
give them
idea.
Something to think about and play with whilst you're changing them, whether it plays
distract them.
to distract them while you change. And it helps, maybe it has a little musical tune or whatever that also can then be creating a sleep association with next, after I get changed, after I hear this music, next is sleep. So creating that routine.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Yeah.
So once we've removed anything distracting from the room, where are we going from here?
Lighting
Yes.
plays a crucial role in regulating your baby's sleep and wake cycles.
So actually the light and the dark is probably one of the most important elements in your baby's ability to settle into sleep well. And I think people underestimate the power of these quite primitive forces on our body clock. This is how we are built as mammals, as humans. to respond to these stimuli in our environment, which the light and the dark are massive ones. So this is how your body clock is regulated. Your body knows that it's sleep time when it's dark, and the light stimulates all these different kinds of processes and responses in your body to let you know that it's time to be awake and alert. It's actually super amazing and very fascinating. But to help our little ones sleep, we can recreate that in their sleep environment.
Yeah, so we do that by creating a dark room, having blackout blinds or shades. You can even temporarily make their room completely blackout if you're renting, or if you don't want to have their room blackout for the duration of them being a baby, although I guarantee you won't regret it. Even my 8 and 9-year-old, they have a completely dark room now, have always had a completely dark room. They settle to sleep so much easier when it's dark. Again, when it's dark, it's distraction free. They can't see the
toys and the
rungs
books
on
and,
their even the rungs on their cot. They can use that as a musical instrument themselves. So it's dark, they can't see, and that means sleep.
Because, of course, the dark actually is where melatonin is produced and released. And we all know, there's a lot of hype and talk about melatonin these days, that melatonin is affectionately known as the sleep hormone. And so you need this. We need it. We need it in order to sleep. And we produce it naturally as part of our circadian rhythm, but that is stimulated by diminishing light in the evening, and then, of course, by the dark as we're sleeping. So if your little one's nursery is very bright and light, and this is true for daytime sleeps as well as nighttime sleeps. If you're endeavouring to get your little one to nap well, having a very dark room is artificially creating that environment where they're going to be encouraged to sleep.
And you might find that your newborn baby doesn't need it to be as dark, but I can almost guarantee that if your newborn baby starts catnapping or not sleeping very well and they're sleeping in the light, it is because their room is too bright if they've been sleeping in the light. With a newborn, they do have a certain amount of melatonin from the mother that is still releasing throughout the first few weeks, which keeps them in that sort of sleepy newborn phase, but that does start to wear off, and then they need to start producing their own melatonin, which obviously they need the dark to do that.
And when we say a dark room, we mean, like, I have friends who have said, oh yeah, I've made my child's room dark, and I go and look, and I'm like, this is not
everything.
Yeah, I'm right. I'm like, this is like having a dark filter on your room, but we're talking like can't see your hand in front of your face, dark, pitch black. Yeah. And the other thing we need to say about the dark in the room, Amanda, is the use of night lights. Because night lights, again, like musical mobiles, are sold and marketed as a tool to use in your baby's room, and you can get very cute ones, you can get color changing ones, and they look amazing, and the marketing around them is pretty incredible. But the reality is your baby does not need a nightlight, because they are not scared of the dark. In fact, they don't even realize how much they actually love the dark. The only reason you would need
dark for the last 9 months.
The only reason you would ever need a light in your baby's room is if you were up feeding them or changing them or tending to them in the night, in which case a very dim red night light is your best choice. Alternatively, you could just have like the hall light on and a bit of light spill. Or I used to just even use the light from my phone screen to just see my way around my baby's rooms in the night.
Just really dim, even a dim lamp if you're feeding in the night. We can get lamps these days that dim right down, or hue bulbs or whatever. You can have them on their lower settings so that it's not creating too much of a...
Do not put a night light. I guarantee if you've got a baby, if you've got a child under 2, really, and you have a night light on in their room at night, that is why they're not sleeping.
Especially blue night lights. Now, blue night lights
white,
kill me so much. Blue night lights, I can only assume, are actually invented by people who don't understand light and don't understand that during the day.
Pretty. That's why.
No, it's because during the day, blue seems really dim because our blue rods are not activated. The rods or the photoreceptors that are able to see blue light are only activated at nighttime. So blue is quite dim during the day, and then it is the brightest that you can possibly have at nighttime, because with night our photoreceptors change over to blue, and it's just so piercing. It's the
and
worst.
Stimulating for a baby.
Yeah, so I can only assume that those people have been making those night lights during the day, not realizing that they're actually used at nighttime when your photoreceptors have changed over. So
we're in saying that red is the best colour to use at night for a night light. If you have to use a night light, use a red one.
Yeah, so red is the opposite of blue. It's the lower spectral sensitivity at nighttime, and that is why we see red at the lowest. It's the reason that we have red and blue emergency lights, because we can see them both in the day and the night.
So the thing about night lights is there definitely is a time and place for them. So don't suddenly go and throw out your night lights, because once your little one is a toddler and they develop imagination and they start, kids at preschool or older siblings, talk to them about monsters or whatever, night lights are actually a really handy tool at this point, because your little one probably is already in, hopefully, pretty good sleep patterns. But at that stage too, the sleep pressure can be a lot higher because they're generally not napping as much in the day. They're very active. They're more exhausted. So it's all right at that point to bring in a night light if you need to, because it actually helps counteract a lot of those psychological and behavioural issues we start to see in toddlers.
Yeah. So after we've had a dark room, what we want to do in the mornings when we do get the baby up in the morning is make sure that we make it as bright as possible.
Yes.
So to help regulate that circadian rhythm. So taking your baby straight to the window, making sure that the curtains are wide open, making sure that there is natural sunlight coming in, and talking and stimulating and doing all of the things that we do during the day to help have your baby understand the difference between day and night.
Yeah, that really helps lock in their circadian rhythm, because as we said, the light is such a key trigger. So the dark triggers one thing and the light is triggering the other half of the circadian rhythm. So if we move away from the light and the dark, the next thing that is really important for us to look at, and this is for a safety reason as well as for comfort, is the temperature in your little one's sleep environment. And it's a little bit of a myth, because it needs to be a bit cooler than you think. I think people automatically assume, I know I certainly did when my eldest was born, I knew nothing about babies, that you need to have a really warm nursery for your baby because they can't produce their own body. They can produce their own body heat. They just don't regulate it as well. But there's actually a danger to that, because babies, a leading cause of sudden infant death is overheating. And so we have to be really careful in terms of your little one's temperature for safety reasons, but also because a slightly cooler room actually helps them to sleep better.
Yeah, so the ideal temperature range is around 18 to 20 degrees Celsius or 64 to 68 degrees Fahrenheit. Now, I even remember this myself, having the room at 18 degrees and thinking that it was really cold, because when you're going in from a warmer room, you're going into the bedroom and it feels cold. But you've got to remember that during the night, whilst we sleep, our body temperatures do decrease, and this is key as well to why we need it at a lower temperature.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. And it's more, and surely you yourself know, I know myself, I always sleep better when the room is cold, but I'm nice and warm. Yeah. Like I've got 4,000 blankets on, because that's how I roll. And the room is like freezing cold. Oh, that is like the best. And it's no different for our babies. And then, of course, as we said, it's actually a lot safer because there's no risk of them overheating.
Yeah. And using things like a fan or a heater or air conditioner to regulate the temperature. I used to use a thing called a heater mate, which was just a really simple device which plugged into the wall. It measured the temperature where the plug was, and then the heater would be using its own cord, would be on the other side of the room.
The heater plugged into the heater mate.
Yeah, the heater plugged into the heater mate, and it literally would just turn on and off the power to the heater, depending on to regulate the temperature.
Yeah, so it's like a thermostat. Although
it is a thermostat.
I feel like this was a while ago before those kind of room temperatures had their own thermostats. Room heaters had their own thermostats. You get fancier ones now.
No, I think it actually still worked better than a heater with a thermostat, because remembering this is actually measuring the temperature of the room rather than the temperature of the heater.
Right next to the heater,
right,
yeah.
Yeah.
That's right, because we used to have it. We'd have the heater on a really long cord on one side of the room.
That's right.
And you'd have the heater mate plugged into the wall quite close to where the baby was sleeping. Yeah, you're right. You're more accurately measuring the temperature where your baby is rather than right next to the heater.
I know that some of our consultants have used a similar thing from Amazon, which had like a Bluetooth temperature recording thing or something. I can't remember, but it was very similar. But there is a bit of a caveat here. I did have my temperature monitoring section one time underneath like a draft because I hadn't shut the curtains properly. And I didn't realize, but what I was thinking that the room was getting cooler and cooler, even though it was actually getting hotter and hotter because the heater was getting turned on so much. So yeah, watching if you've got a baby monitor with the temperature on the baby monitor, make
that's
sure
a good idea.
If you've got that as well as a backup, and making sure that you still do know what the temperature is in the room, just so you've got a second temperature reading is always useful.
And when you're using, advantage, if you're trying to cool down the room, the advantage of using things like a fan is that you're also getting the built-in white noise as well, which is what we're going to talk about next, is how white noise is one of the absolute gold standard baby sleep tools. It's so underrated. It's so easy to create that really peaceful zone for your little one to sleep, because interestingly what it does, and it does it more I think in younger babies, is it, you know, very small babies can only concentrate on one thing at a time.
Yeah, under 6 months.
That's right. So if they're crying and they hear white noise that is louder than their cries, their brain automatically starts listening to the white noise. So then they will actually stop crying because they have to in order to listen to the white noise. So it initiates a calming response in their brains. It's truly amazing.
The one that initiates the calming response is the shh.
Yeah, the repetitive shh track.
Not so much the general white noises or anything, but the shh. Just because you think we're naturally as humans, if you've got holding a crying baby, you're standing there shushing it. So
yeah, that's right.
That's just a normal human response. So definitely using white noise is, and it's played for the duration of the baby's sleep, during naps, during nighttime. And I know that there's going to be people out there that say, oh, you don't need to use white noise, blah, blah, or make them rely on it. Who cares if they rely on it? If they're sleeping well,
that's
fantastic.
Right. It's easy. It's not like they're relying on you holding them in your arms for the entire sleep. That's a tough thing to rely on. It's the easiest sleep association to get rid of if you want to. You just start turning it down when they're 2 or 3 years old. And to be honest, I still use white noise sometimes when I need to go to sleep if my brain's overstimulated or whatever. Yeah. So it's such an easy sleep association. My kids still ask. My kids are a lot older. They ask to have... My 12-year-old has an air purifier in her room, and it makes a really good, similar to a fan, a white noise sound. And she turns it on herself every night because she likes the sound of it. And my youngest likes to have the fan on. Don't you have
a fan in your bedroom?
Yeah, we have a fan. We have a fan. My husband likes to sleep to the sound of the fan. And it's not hard. There's nothing wrong with that. It's actually really quite peaceful.
Yeah.
It does. So the idea is it gives them something to listen to so they can tune into what they're listening to, and it helps them zone out to anything else. The advantage, of course, of white noise is that when you're using it with a baby is that it also helps to mask any other sounds. So for us, it was crucial because we also at various points had babies and older children running around, sprinting around, in fact, being very
TV
loud and wild and uncontrolled. Yeah, and you know, neighbours or the dog or... whatever.
People knocking on your door.
Those sounds. Yeah, the Amazon delivery people. What?
Yeah,
my husband.
Yeah, exactly. I think white noise is just so easy and
it's so valuable.
It's so valuable. We have all of the white noise tracks, obviously, on our own sleep albums, which are on all streaming platforms.
Because we straight away could see that this is it's like the best sleep tool that exists. We made a bunch.
Yeah, especially the baby sleep
that's right.
sound. That is actually magic. It by itself settled my babies more than I ever had to.
Yeah, I know. So if you think you're interested in looking at some white noise, find us on the streaming platforms, little ones, obviously. We've got albums on there, we've got singles. Put them on repeat.
Yeah.
Put them on a little speaker or something in your little one's room, and you only need to, if your baby is crying, we generally would say to play the white noise or the whatever you're playing as loud as a shower would be.
Yeah.
If they're crying. And then when they stop crying, generally we say to play it as loud as conversational speech when they're asleep. And people often say, oh, white noise is going to hurt their ears. Actually, in the womb, it's been recorded as being over 90 decibels, which is as loud as a vacuum cleaner, and that's for 9 months they have that. There's no evidence actually that suggests that using white noise for the duration of your little one's naps is damaging to their hearing, especially you're not using it at 90 decibels the entire time.
No, like maybe you're using it like that if they're crying. I certainly know that I used to turn up the volume on the sounds if they were going to sleep and they were crying, just to help calm them. And honestly, less than a minute, they are calm, quiet, and asleep in their cot.
Yeah, white noise is so valuable.
So valuable. So I guess let's move on to safety. Aspects of the sleep environment.
Touch on this because I think we have a bit of a responsibility to make sure we're conveying the right information to people, and there's a lot of back and forward here about what's the best and the safest way for your baby to sleep, and these regulations are taken from the World Health Organization,
and they seem to change over the years.
That's right. In general, the advice is that your baby should be sleeping on their back until they're old enough to roll, until they're rolling onto their tummy, at which point I think they're generally strong enough, if they can roll back between back and tummy, then they're okay to sleep however they choose to sleep. My son, for example, wouldn't sleep on his tummy for love nor money. And I think at times I used to put him on his tummy to be like, are you actually ever going to sleep on your tummy? And still to this day, at 10 years old, he's never once slept on his tummy. I kid you not. He sleeps flat on his back all night long and doesn't move. Whereas my girls are all over the place all of the time, and they were as babies too. But the advice, especially when they're very small and definitely when they're still swaddled, is your baby needs to, and there's a saying, and it's called back to sleep. Yeah. So you put your baby back to sleep, on their back to sleep.
Yeah, and removing any sort of loose blankets or pillows or stuffed animals, anything like that from their sleep environment
can be a big risk. So it's just keeping, because of course these are suffocation hazards, so it's keeping things away from their face, away from their body while they're sleeping. And they do recommend sleeping your baby on a firm or relatively firm mattress, certainly not like a big floppy feather cushion. Because that also is a big suffocation hazard. Yeah.
And then with their blankets, obviously, rather than having loose blankets on them, we would recommend to swaddle them when they're not rolling. And then, of course, from when they do start rolling, moving into a sleeping bag, which is bag essentially that buttons up, keeps their arms out free so that they can
it's like a
still
blanket
move.
That they wear.
They are fantastic. Then it means that your baby can roll all over the cot, be upside down, around all the places. Half the time their legs are in the air, but they are still warm. Whereas you can totally see how a blanket could have been wrapped around their face when you see how your baby sleep.
That's right. And the good thing about the infant sleeping bags is that, so once your baby's really ready to be unswaddled and transition into a sleep sack, maybe around 4 or 5 months old, they can then be in a sleeping bag, sleep sack like that until mine were in it till they're about 4, because you can get toddler ones.
Yeah.
And these things also work as positive sleep associations, like with the dark, like with the white noise. Your little one comes to associate the sleeping bag with the process of sleep. So it's a really positive step in your little one's sleep routine. And then when you're eventually transitioning your toddler from a cot or a crib into a big kid bed, keeping them in that sleeping bag actually really helps that transition go smoothly.
Because you're only changing one thing. You're just changing the surface that they sleep on, not the blanket as well.
And to be honest, your kids aren't able to manage blankets until they're quite a bit older. Your 2-year-old, your 1-year-old, 2-year-old, they're not able to wake up in the night and go, I'm cold, I'm going to pull my blankets up. And we see so much children of that age waking multiple times throughout the night, and then it turns out that they actually have blankets on, and even though they might have loads of appropriate layers of blankets, they're simply coming out of them in the night. They're not able to pull them up. They're just waking cold. And then over time, these become habit wakes, and you get into a bit of a situation. So having your little one in a sleeping bag is such, again, it's like the dark and the white noise. It's just such an easy, totally valuable sleep tool.
And again, your child is not going to become reliant on it. You will eventually be able to just put your child into a normal bed once they grow older, once they're 4 or 5 years old and they go into their big kid bed. They will just naturally be able to manage blankets.
Cope with blankets.
Yeah, as Nikki said. Don't worry about it creating a sleep association that strong.
Actually, the benefits far outweigh the disadvantages.
Far outweigh. And making sure those swaddles, sleeping bags, or whatever you're using, that they are natural fibres, that they aren't fleece or polyester, because natural fibres, we know it helps with regulating temperature, our body temperature, and it just will make sure that your baby is able to sleep in a much nicer, warm environment.
More comfortable, yeah. And also, this also kills me. Like I see, like with the night lights and the musical mobiles, baby sleeping bags, swaddles and stuff made out of polar fleece, and you know that there's these sort of puffy sleeping bags, like duvet weight sleeping bags, but they're all polyester, and they've got polyester fill, and they're all made out of fleece. And while you think it looks warm and snuggly, it's probably the worst thing you can put your child in, because what generally happens with fleecy fabric like that is there will be a point where your little one gets quite hot and sweaty in it, so they sweat, but because the fabric's not breathable, the sweat stays against their skin, it cools down, it makes them cold, so you're stuck, and then they wake cold. So you just get stuck in this kind of nasty, bad temperature regulating cycle.
Yeah.
So merino, cotton, wool, bamboo, these are all really good choices for sleeping bags or swaddles for your little one.
Yeah, so I think we've probably talked about everything possible to do with their sleep environment.
Let's just add a caveat here, Amanda, because of course the sleep environment doesn't necessarily mean your child's nursery. It can be it's the room they are sleeping in. And I know a lot of people, certainly with younger babies, have their babies still sleeping in their room with them, and that's fine, and that is also what is recommended at a young age. And doing this to your bedroom, having the blackout curtains, having the white noise, is actually probably going to make you sleep a lot better as well.
Yeah.
You'll be surprised. You can thank us later.
Yeah, for sure. All right, so by implementing these tips and strategies discussed in this episode, you'll be well on your way to creating the ideal sleep environment that promotes restful night's sleep, and for you and your baby, as Nikki just said.
Yeah.
So thanks for listening, and make sure you check out our other podcasts. You can also visit us on our website. We've got loads of information on our website, which is www.littlenones.co. And you can find us on the app stores. And as we've already talked about in this podcast, our White Noise albums are on all streaming platforms. Hope that helps.
Come say hi on our social channels. We would love to see you.
Yeah, and we will speak later. Bye.
See you later. This is Little Ones, the Sleep Manual Podcast.